Welcome to Redefining ABCD. Alright. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to a Larger Than Us segment. And today, in this episode, we have a really interesting topic today, and we have also a very equivalently interesting guest. So for this episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of language and understanding, like learning it outside of like a South Asian country. So like for me and Sneha, we both are Tamil Americans, so learning Tamil in America is kind of like what we will be surrounding the topic today. And joining us in this discussion, we have one of our favorite aunties from the community, Subhadra Suresh. Subhadra auntie, welcome. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well, Keerthi. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Great to see both of you all, Keerthi in California and Sneha in Cincinnati.
Awesome. Yes. So yeah, we're so happy to have you on too, and we're hoping that we'll be able to have hear the understanding of a parent perspective of an Indian American or South Asian American. So yeah, with that, Sneha, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like kind of jumping into before jumping into the questions, maybe give us a little bit of background of like how you're connected to the Tamil school and like your years working on working at Tamil school and also or working for Tamil school and also your connection to the Tamil language and your background with it. I think that'd be kind of a good like starting point.
Thank you, Sneha. Well, where do I start? So, Tamil, my mother tongue, you all know, just as your dear your parents do, and I love the language because it's such a beautiful language and it has opened up several doors for me in my own culture and heritage and understanding my roots, and it's all possible because of this beautiful language. So I've always been kept myself in touch with the language by reading books, researching on it, understanding, listening to great speakers, and and enriching my vocabulary too on the Tamil language. So when this was happening, there was an opportunity in Cincinnati in 2005 when I heard that they were opening the Tamil school through the Tamil Sangam, which is our community organization, Greater Cincinnati Tamil Sangam. And so I signed up my name as a volunteer, not knowing how I will be useful to the school. And then we had a small meet at Sharon Woods, and they said it's going to be a language teaching school, and we need teachers. So whoever is interested, sign up. And so I knew exactly what my role was going to be. We signed up, and we started the school immediately in 2005 fall. And ever since, I think I've become more closer to the language. The Tamil school in Cincinnati has brought me closer to the language. It's opened a lot of doors for me in seeing how I can improve the language, how I can teach it better, and to accumulate more tools within me as to how I can present this language to young students and to people who are interested in learning the language.
That's awesome. And it's me and Kirti, for a little bit of context, have gone to the school. We went when we were younger. We were one of the first students, not to brag. We were there, we've been there, and it's great. We were able to participate in a lot of the cultural shows and all that stuff. So I think all three of us definitely have a huge connection to the school. And I guess going into that a little bit, in your own words, why do you think it's important that first generation South Asian Americans like practice their language, their respective languages? And how do you think like parents can motivate their children to get interested in their own culture and language at the same time?
Okay, to answer your first question, why should South Asian children, growing up outside of their respective countries, should learn their language? It's because all languages that are spoken in the Southeast Asian countries are extremely old, and they have a very very significant language group from which these languages have all spread. So there is some commonality. Like if you take any of the Southeast Asian languages, there'll be words that are like, for instance, the word for mother, amma, will be very much used in Korea, in China, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in India, in Sri Lanka. So which becomes You meet your friends who are from these countries, and then you hear them call their mother as amma, and then you'll be immediately connected to them. That's how
Mhm.
this language can be a glue for all the Southeast Asian children growing up here. So it's very important for them to learn their languages because it tells them more about their roots, and also makes gives them an opportunity to understand their heritage, their culture, where it is coming from. And these are such old cultures and heritages that have to be preserved. And I think, as the next generation of these immigrant parents, I think it is a big duty for these children to do that, to preserve their culture and heritage, and that could be done only if they understand their language and if they talk it. And then answering your second question, the most important, I would say, is the parents should not pressurize their children to learn the language. You know, the language should be made very easy for them. There should be no pressure, or they shouldn't get an aversion, or they should not be scared of learning the language. And also at the same time, not letting them develop an insecurity within themselves, that telling, oh, you become somebody different if you don't know the language. No, it's not like that. The language, as you know, you can either speak the language, or sometimes even when you don't speak the language, you can feel the language. You can watch. Don't you agree with me? Like, I can watch a non-Tamil movie or a non-English movie. These two languages I know pretty well, but I can watch another language movie, and I can feel what they're telling. You know,
Yeah.
so a child should not be pressurized to learn the language. Okay, that's what I would say. Very casually, very nicely, in the way they would like. If you're going to present the language, that will be accepted by children growing up here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's like any other type of way of approaching parenting, in my opinion. Like in other topics, if the child feels forced that they have to learn it, or it's like a make or break situation, they will learn it, yes. But in terms of like the longevity of them grasping
Exactly.
the language, will
Yes.
be not there, which is
Yes.
ultimately what I think people who are kind of forcing their children to learn language is what their goal. So that is also very important, and I'm glad that you also mentioned that too, because I feel like when it's like a good understanding between both like the child and also like a person who is a parent,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah. See,
And
the reason why I'm telling is, like, I learned my mother tongue as a second language when I was growing up. So, it was a subject in school. So there were exams, and, you had to study, you had to prepare, though it was my mother tongue. So I always felt, oh my God, this is another subject that I need to excel in, another exam that I need to excel in. At this point, if my parents had come and forced me and said, hey, read this book, or no, read this speech, go and join this competition, go do this, I would have hated it once for all. Because already you have a pressure of excelling in an exam. And then on top of it, if the parents are going to expect me to go to this, do this, go to this Tirukkural competition, go learn this,
Yeah.
memorize all this, I would say, done. When is the time this is all going to end? It's all done with me, right? But
yeah,
it's never been like that. It's been always like my parents, very nicely giving me newspaper articles, telling me, just read this. This is very interesting here. And then my mom discussing with me a Tamil novel that she read, and telling some very exciting parts. Then me, when I get excited, I'll say, Mama, show me that part. I want to read that myself and see whether I'm feeling the same excitement you have. So that's how nicely you have to, ease the child into learning the language.
right. And I think we were talking about this before we hit record, but language is like one of the pillars of cultural identity. It's not the only one. And Auntie was
Mhm.
saying earlier that how it connected to other aspects of our cultural identity. So it is a good segue into the next question that we wanted to ask is I'm sure like before having kids and even also immigrating, those stages of life could influence the way you kind of perceive these approaching or ways of teaching languages. So we wanted to start kind of at the beginning and see, like, when you immigrated over here with Uncle, did you ever have any thoughts or worries about how you would want to approach preserving like Indian culture for your kids who would be growing up in America? And what do you think? What are some aspects of Tamil and South Indian culture in general do you think that are kind of important to instill into a next generation?
Um, well, when I immigrated to this country in 1994, um, let's take Cincinnati, the place that we are in, as as an example. There wasn't a good diversity at all. Yeah, there was a small pocket of Indian families, but they were in a certain area, and then there was nothing else. There was one cultural organization at that time which used to host one Deepavali party or one one Pongal celebration, and that was meant for the entire South Indian population. The entire South
Mm.
Indian community, all the four languages were represented, and that's about it. The rest of the year, rest of the time, there was no interaction of the languages that we spoke and with us. Was I worried about it? I don't think so, because between me and uncle, we were developing it within ourselves. So I was happy with that, talking in Tamil and then listening to Tamil music, watching Tamil movies on videos. That kept us okay. And then getting magazines, Tamil magazines to read. That kind of brought some kind of normalcy to our language and to our culture. But now, what we have is something phenomenal, especially in a small town like Cincinnati. What we have established is amazing. And that I would completely credit it to the Tamil Sangam that we have. Because with Tamil Sangam came the Tamil school. And then we started bringing all interested families and people under this umbrella. And once we all came together, then we figured out what needs to be taught, what needs to be passed on to our children, what needs to be showcased. So it was then, it's not just the cultural events, not just Deepavali and Pongal. We have other things that we are celebrating, you know. And then, so because of that, I think the art forms have taken of uh, they have a platform to be showcased, like you have the music, the Carnatic music, or just folk music coming up, and then each one vying to see how you can display this. So new forms of art, like not just the classical dances but also folk dances coming up, and then movie songs and movie dances coming. So dance teachers being more encouraged, dance schools being encouraged. Just see how much we have given way to, because of establishing one language related organization. So I think, to answer the question, was I worried? I wasn't. It was just within our four walls that we were trying to develop. But now we have a bigger platform where we have resources that we can give it to our children.
Yeah, you also bring up a good point of like the passive attributes to South Indian culture that people don't normally acknowledge. Like when we think of culture, we think language, traditions, rituals, but things like a sense of community, a sense of, or like the strength of a community, and how family is very important in Indian culture. And not only that, but like respecting different relationships, and in Tamil culture specifically, hospitality and taking care of one another. And though you can see those kind of blending in with generating a Tamil community and the strength of a community through Tamil school built where I guess our strong community is now. So that is also important to highlight, I guess, what you were mentioning earlier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess so. Before you had kids, like the pre-kid era, did you and Uncle have any like similar views on how you wanted to like parent your kids or immerse them into culture? And how did you have the type of conversations with Uncle about these types of topics?
As I told you, Kirti, we had no reason to even have a conversation because we did not have the resources, right?
Mm.
So one thing we decided was we'll talk in Tamil at home. We will, and then at that time, we used to get these VHS tapes from India. So,
Mm.
Oh, okay.
grandparents used to, tape TV programs or little kids programs, music and stuff like that and send it to us. And that's the only way we used to play. See, but now, you go to YouTube, you have multiple things that you can show the children. But in the 90s, we did not have that opportunity.
Mhm.
I remember very distinctly playing these VHS tapes to both Srinath and Karthik and making them watch so they can, and then allowing them to ask me questions. And then, of course, we spoke in Tamil at home. And, but then I would say the, uh, what can I say? The For the boys to have a strong feeling of why they should learn Tamil and how important it is to them, especially growing up in America, was established only when they first came to the Tamil school and they saw the fellow students there. So then that gave them a very strong reason as to why they should learn Tamil. Until then,
Mhm.
it was like, okay, I'm doing it. Why? My parents are talking. So it's a language that we speak at home. Once I come out, I talk in English. That is a language that my mom scolds. So if she uses Tamil, that means she's angry with me. So in the mall, if my mom's using that language, that means she wants to say don't do it, or she's extremely angry and that she's trying to use this language in front of English
Right.
speaking people, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that is what I think. I think the understanding of my boys were. But I
Mhm.
think when they were in sixth grade, when Srinath was in sixth grade, is when he first joined Tamil school, and that's when he realized, oh, there is a community. There are other kids who are of my similar background. This one talks Gokul talks Tamil very well, so maybe I should also talk. There was some kind of an inspiration in him. So,
Mhm.
comes home very shyly, he would try to make up a sentence and talk. Karthik would be in
Mhm.
his class, Subhashini auntie, she was in his teacher. So he would come and say, Auntie told me to say this in Tamil in the evening. So I have to tell that in Tamil. So I would say we did not have the resources when we had the children that there is even a way of how to make them talk and keep them in the Tamil language speaking or in the cultural background. But slowly, as they were growing up, when it was available to us, we could avail that for the children, and that really helped. That really, really helped.
I I think that's really like a good point that you bring up. Like I think I never really thought about it just because now we're so immersed in it just seamlessly just through like the amount of I don't know, like Amma's always playing like a radio Mechi on the radio on her phone, which allows radio shows from India or like playing in Tamil Nadu to be on broadcast to us. Like the little things here and there, like you don't really realize it's happening until it's already there, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's totally normal. That's just part of how we, how we roll in our household.
Yes.
Um, and it's not it doesn't really have anything to do even if you can't speak it the fact that we can all understand it and understand the comedy I think is a huge thing that at least played a role in when I was younger. I don't know about I don't want to speak for Keerthi as well, but I think that was a huge aspect where like we just watch like what is it Buddy Velu comedy or like Vivek
Yeah.
comedy and we'd understand like the colloquialism of the language
Yeah.
even if we can't really speak it all that much, just the idea that you can like mimic that or like be aware of it is
Yes.
like kind of cool that we were able to be surrounded with that.
Yeah.
Um, I guess in terms of like Karthik and Srinath again, how do you see yourself, continuing? Do you guys still have those kind of conversations? Because now, I mean, like Karthik and Srinath are like me and Kirti's age, if not older, out and doing their thing. How do you see yourself continuing these conversations with them in the future, or do you still have those conversations? I don't know.
Conversations again, I don't have point blank conversations like telling you have to
Right,
do this, you
right.
have to do that. But
Mhm.
I can see that the cultural and the heritage expectations have gone into them as they've grown up.
Yeah,
So now I don't have to force them into doing, like there is a cultural event, they are present at home. They come and,
right.
even if it's a religious thing, they come and pray. They do what they have to. And dressing up, they're fine with what's being told. They don't question, they don't argue anymore because it's been accepted. And then, like Karthik has started commenting when he sees me in a sari, he'll say, Mom, that's very nice. That's beautiful. Is that silk? Is
Yeah.
it cast cotton?
Aw.
Oh, this combination is beautiful. I've never seen this one. That looks lovely. This combination, it's amazing. So he started what appreciating these. I would say even these are little more nuances, right? rather than telling, I like your sari, but going
Right.
deep into appreciating combinations, appreciating the material. So I think slowly they have started seeing that because of their immersion, the language and the cultural immersion they had so many years, not just with us. Probably we as parents imparted only like 25% into this. The rest is all from the community, from coming to
Right.
the sangam events, seeing friends, going to friends homes, parties, hanging out with you guys. That is what has enriched them more, to be giving them a reason to become part of this,
Right.
right?
And do you think the so this is I guess kind of going off that a little bit. Do you think like because the way that you're talking about it seems like language is almost just one kind of part to the whole thing. So do you think like yes, it's important, but the culture and getting the culture and the nuances and understand being very enveloped in it seems a little like almost important, like just as important, if not more important. Do you think? Do you
It
think
is,
that is that the
it
key
is
too?
Sneha, but then I did not teach them. I did not tell them go deep.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
only gave them the foundation. They have just built, and the reason why they've built is they are now enriched with the fact that, hey, we have a developing community around us. So,
Right.
30 years now, when I'm 50 years old, I have my friends who are going to be of the same cultural background. If I have to relate to these people, I have a way to relate. I need to relate with them. I should be part of all this, right?
Right.
So given that,
Yeah.
it's coming natural to them. So, like for instance, Srinath now has become very much involved in understanding our leaders, which even me, I started reading about our leaders, the Tamil political leaders and all that only very late in my life. Though I have grown up with those leaders, only now. But Srinath now is reading books on Anna Durai, who's
Right.
the founder of the Dravidian Party, and then he's reading about Ambedkar, and he's reading about Gandhi, and he's coming up with more views. Especially, when I listen to him, it's more interesting because his views are as an Indian who has grown up here. So he
Right.
has a good comparative sense to compare leaders here to lead to what those leaders were, right? So he'll
Right.
say, Mom, you should see their outlook. He had such a futuristic idea. You guys don't understand. It's because of that is what you have now. Only when he says that, then you understand, okay, what he says is right. If this man had not thought about, educating the women, we would not be where we are now. That is being highlighted by him, and that's because he's reading a lot. That again, I did not tell him to read. He's doing it out of his own interest, because I would say that's because of what he has been immersed, and now he wants to learn more and beyond.
Right.
Yeah, I can totally resonate with what Karthik and Srinath are feeling now. I guess because as Sneha and I are also like becoming older, we were immersed in this community, and then when we go off to college, we were like, how do we kind of go back to this type of sense of community? Because it's oftentimes lost because there is no strong community like that when we leave our family or leave the nest. So I can totally resonate with like that need to kind of that curiosity to learn more, and also like that level of homesickness. So I'm sure like that's why Karthik maybe gives us appreciative details when he compliments on your sari. It's like that homesickness of not being able to be around that all the time. So I totally get that.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so kind of going into more of a parent perspective, I guess. Now that we have a very much established community in Cincinnati, where do you, I guess, from your perspective, what do you hope kids now in this generation that are kind of being immersed in Tamil or any other South Asian language outside of their country, outside of the country, how do you hope those kids what do you hope they take out of it, and how do you feel about where our school and community is now?
Oh my God, Kriti, I'm telling you, we have come leaps and bounds.
Hmm.
It's 17 years since Tamil Sangam was started in Cincinnati, and it's the same time when the Tamil school was also started.
Hmm.
From what, as you said, you were the first batch of the students that came up. You know, we were it was like, we were like struggling. We were figuring out where to start, how to teach, what to teach, what methods to use. It was all a big research process at that time. Then by the time we were like 10 years into the school, and we had figured out our own syllabus, and we had figured out our own curriculum as to what to be taught to our children. They already formed the American Tamil, the curriculum syllabus system here, right? So we started using that, and under that umbrella, which is a national umbrella, there are about 50 schools now around the country that have been incorporated. So we have already bought a kind of uniformity that can be followed. So we had a lot of students who moved from Cincinnati to North Carolina and other schools where they said, hey, it was an easy transition. I could leave, the second grade here and went and joined third grade there, and it was like going into any other school. So that's what we have accomplished in within the short span of time. And now, sitting even with the pandemic, I think pandemic did the best for developing our culture, heritage, and language. You know, even though there was no actual school, but just in virtuality, from the what to say, the safe surroundings of their home, the kids were more comfortable in learning more and understanding better. Like, I can tell that for a fact because I've been taking the kindergarten students. I've been teaching kindergarten level for the past, what now, 8 years in our Tamil school. So when we had the regular school and when they used to come into classrooms, the first 3 months of, and you, Keerthi has been my volunteer. Sneha, you have been a volunteer. You have that experience, right? The Tamil class. They will be crying, not wanting to come because these are like between
Yeah.
3 years and 6 years, right?
Babies,
Yeah.
yeah.
Half the time we will be spending making them feel comfortable. And
Yeah.
I remember Kirti and me, we'll be talking, we'll say, we should not scare them. I want them to continue. They should not drop out.
Yeah.
That used to be our goal for the first 2 months. But now, in the last 2 years of having virtual classroom on Zoom, and that's how we conducted classes, absolutely no crying, no, we didn't have that issue of making them feel comfortable because they were sitting in their playrooms or in their bedrooms, and they're very comfortable, extremely productive. By the end of the year, the 3-year-old who was not able to even hold a pencil would be able to write the first two alphabets of the language.
Wow.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, because, and that I would say did not come by the parents pushing them or anything. It was just sitting there and viewing the other kids all writing and showing the word, the alphabet, and them telling, "I will do it." There was a 3.5 year old kid. No, she wasn't even attending preschool. And
Mhm.
I even told her, I said, you are not expected to write. You're only going to talk and sing and say. You don't need to write anything. But then she made it a point to show to me that she's capable of writing. Within 3 months, she wrote and showed me the first two alphabets,
Oh, that's
which is very,
awesome.
which is very cute. So I would say the kids are now more self motivated, and they want to do beyond Tamil schools and books, and there are avenues for that now. So I'm
I
all,
think it's really cool.
yeah, it is. It's
Sorry.
amazing, So
Very
now,
cool.
see, you all know we have Tirukural competitions in the
Yeah,
country,
yeah.
right? So if you're still interested, you can actually go and compete nationally. They have a national
Oh.
level competition. Okay. And similarly, there are other writing competitions that are held nationally that you can join. So the opportunities plenty. They're plenty. And now it's also becoming international.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's really good because I mean, okay, I was gonna say I think my next question was gonna be something along the lines of like how do you teach the very very young kids to get interested in Tamil and be participate. But it sounds like from what you said that like they are already kind of taking it on their own and and wanting to learn on their own
Yes.
and almost turned it into a competition of sorts or like a game kind
Yes.
of where yeah, I feel like that might. I don't know. I at least in my personally, I think I learn better when everything is turned into a game, and it's like, oh, so
So
how many things
I
can
see
you
this
get in
for
certain time?
our class. The timing is an hour and a half. I
Yes,
would say I'm only teaching them for 15 to 20-minute max from the textbook.
right,
The rest of the time we talk a lot. And let's say currently I have 10 kids in my class. Out
right,
of the 10, uh, 7 of them talk Tamil perfectly, very fluently. And that I would give it to the parents. That's because of the parents continuously talking at home in Tamil and keeping them engaged. That's why they're talking. The rest 3, they are little shy. They do know Tamil, but they're little shy. But when they are on the screen and they see the other 7 talking, without them knowing, they will be talking in Tamil. So I think it's because of the camaraderie that they have developed in the class. So that's making them do that. And
right,
the way now the class is being conducted and the way they learn it is we talk a lot, we learn new vocabularies, and I make them bring about more vocabulary. And if they tell it in English, I try to tell them just use a few Tamil words in between and talk. Even if it's broken, don't worry about it. And lot of show and tell. So if I'm teaching vegetables, if I'm teaching about vegetables, I open my refrigerator. I want them to see that I'm opening my refrigerator. I'm opening my vegetable bin and I'm picking up vegetables and I'm showing it to them. Then they are able to relate because everybody has a refrigerator. So immediately another one will run telling, I will go and I will open, and she'll say, my mom also has the same chilies in the refrigerator. And, she will bring
Oh,
so you see, immediately there is a kind of interaction and then a kind of
excitement.
understanding, rather than taking what is on the table and then showing it to them. And then
right,
I
right.
I love to introduce books to them, whether they're able to read or not able to read. It's like when you're babies, how books should be given to you for you to just page through. You have to feel the book. So I always show them books. I show them pictures in the books and tell them where to buy and get those books if they're interested. So that should always be a part of your language learning experience. Reading that books, the Tamil language book.
Right. You kind of mentioned a little bit before about how there's some people in your class that are not they don't know the language, they can't speak the language as much as the other, the 6 or 7 or however many students. How do you respond to those individuals who might feel a little insecure about that fact, or kind of a little timid about the way that they speak, or a little almost embarrassed at like how broken it is, or it's not as fluent or something like that? What would you tell them to help them help comfort them and maybe start learning and help their learning a little bit better?
Just overlook them, Sneha. That's all.
Right.
Because the
Yeah.
moment you start highlighting it, that's when they'll start getting shy. You just overlook them. When they ask you in English, I'll answer back in English. And immediately I will tell again the same thing translated in Tamil, as if the rest of the kids have to understand that. So, and then that is the first step. The more I overlook, and the more they see me encouraging kids who are talking in Tamil, and when these children get a hold, or they start developing a relationship with me, they'll start talking in Tamil. Meaning initially they will say, Nethu I went to the shop,
Yeah.
and my amma bought she also bought katrika. Let's say I'm talking about brinjal, eggplant, katriku.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they would like to say that as a thing. So immediately I would give my complete attention to them. I'll say, "Oh, so your amma bought katrika, Nethu? Good. In the shopla she went and got katrika." Then they start understanding the words, right? Then they'll say the store where she went and got that. Then you start developing, and then once you start taking them out of this, for them to feel that they're talking the language, rather you take them to the scenario of the shop, and they see that I'm interested, very fluently the words will start coming in there. You do that a few times, and then they start getting empowered. Oh, I'm capable of doing it too. Then you start telling them slowly. Now you are capable of talking. So start talking at home. At least make sure that you talk one sentence when you're having dinner at home. Tell your mom, you know, uh, to serve you in Tamil, or thank her in Tamil. Say Nandri Amma. Your sambar was ரொம்ப நல்லா இருக்கு, something like that. So you start teaching them how to start incorporating Tamil into their daily uh, speaking. Then they get an idea, they get a way, and then they will do it, I'm sure. So,
Kind of, I
and
guess,
the
kind of.
best way to teach any language for that matter is through food.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Food
Absolutely.
items, you first tell them everything thing, and then the next thing you go into is how do you cook. வதக்குறது, வறுக்கிறது,
Yeah.
you teach them, whatever it is, food kind of brings you there. It gets you excited.
Yeah.
So,
Like, yes, I know what that is. I've eaten that.
Right.
I know about it. Uh,
But to kind of extend that question, I have a few friends personally who have always they were in a situation where they didn't have a community like ours where they had the opportunity to learn Tamil from someone, and in addition their parents themselves are not as strong in learning their like Tamil just because their own parents didn't teach them when they were younger. And it was just like the situation that they were in, they didn't realize how cool or how important language connecting to your mother tongue was until later in life. And so now they're like 23, 24, and some people I know are like a lot older, even like your age, auntie, and they're so now like regretting learning, or they're kind of scared to learn as an adult. I guess in terms of that, what would be some advice that you would give to those types of individuals who are kind of scared to take that jump? And it's kind of hard to use the same type of methodologies as you would as a kid, but like what would be some advice you would give them in terms of getting back into their comfortable like way of learning their mother tongue?
mother tongue. So now the resources are plenty. I know even in the US you have an organization called iParty, which does, technologically it is teaching Tamil to children. It's both. It also provides learning material for adults, and so similarly we have multiple organizations that have been developed in the US to teach children and also adults. But as you said, you can't start off with talking about vegetables and all that for adults, because the level is a little more higher. So I
Mhm.
would suggest they go first for listening to tapes, vocabulary tapes, or tapes that have, what do you call, like one-on-one talking, like somebody are telling to say, how do you, to ask somebody's name, you have to say, "Om per enna," tapes like that. And you listen to it constantly, somewhere the imprint is there in the mind. And that helps you to understand how the language is spoken. With respect to Tamil, Tamil is very easy. What you write is what you talk, and there is no confusion in that. The alphabets that you see, if you're able to read the alphabets, and that's what it is. It's not like put is put and cut is cut. In
Mhm.
Tamil, what you write is what you talk. So in that way, it is very easy. But for adults, I would say rather than focusing on writing and reading, just going with conversational language is more important. And for that, listening to language tapes will be a very good way to start getting yourself involved in the language. Watching the language movies. So if you want to learn whatever language it is, whether you want to learn Hindi or you want to learn Tamil or Malayalam or Kannadam, just watch a movie. And the first thing is you have your subtitles there, and then you can then correlate what they're talking and then to the subtitles. And later you don't need the subtitles, you will be able to understand some of the common words that they're using. And then of course, you have to start developing your stamina and strength from within, and say, hey, I don't care if people are going to laugh at me, I'm going to use some of these words and I'm going to see. So, some of your friends who are not talking in Tamil, they've started learning the language. They come and sit amongst you who can talk very well, and then just throw words here and there and say, Kirti, nalla irukku Kirti. Nee romba adaga irukka Sneha. And then, yeah, of course, you can laugh at them for their, accent or the way they pronounced it. But then you develop a thick skin. Then you learn the language. It is definitely going to come within you.
You have to
Right.
start,
Yeah.
and that's
Right.
all.
You just go for it. Just go for it. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, and I think that's really important. And I think speaking in terms of like people who are older, like not older or like older and learning the language. I think another concern that I know me and Kirti have discussed on this podcast before is how do we in the next generation to our children, to our own children, the next generation of South Asian American, at that point they'll be second generation Indian American. How do we continue this conversation with our own children? And do you have any advice for us trying to, because there's definitely like you guys know a lot of Tamil, like your generation knows so much Tamil, and then our generation kind of knows less inevitably. And then is that gonna like how do we make it slow down that dilution of Tamil language? And how can we help them get as just as excited about it as we are
Just do what your parents did.
now? Right.
They did it foolproof, right?
Mhm.
That's your dictionary. Just do what your parents did. Talk in Tamil to them. Expose them to listening to Tamil more, and make them feel or give them a reason why they should learn the language. So I last year in my class I had two students whose moms were Indians but the dads were Americans. So she said, I do everything at home, teaching him or her the language. I do talk to him or her in Tamil, but then he doesn't want to learn the language, or there is no excitement in him. So I thought I'll bring him to the Tamil school for him to see that there are other kids who are learning the language, and it's actually a school, and then that will give him the inspiration and the aptitude to learn the language. Believe it or not, it did. By the end of the year, but was the language as fluent as what we with parents with both from the similar background is, versus a parent from a Tamil speaking background and a parent from an American dad? No, it wasn't, because here the kid is taking it as a textbook language, a language that is given to him as a textbook. See, for you, it is natural. You have your grandparents who are talking the language. You have your aunts and uncles who are talking the language. Your both parents are talking the language. They are from the same area. They are talking the same dialect. So for you, there is no question as to, oh, why should I? Or why is this different? Why is dad different? Or why is mom different? But then imagine a kid who's growing up in a household with a Tamil speaking mom and a non Tamil speaking dad. Then he sees the duality there. So of course he's going to have questions with him. But then he is going to learn the language, but not as you guys did, but in a different format. And to what level he's going to take up. He might say, hey, conversation is enough for me. I don't want to read. I don't want to write. I cannot sit through Tamil movies. It's just a bunch of folks who are singing and dancing and running around. I'm not able to relate to the Tamil heroes or this kind of a romance or whatever. But I will talk because that is making my mom happy. It could be as simple as that. Or I will talk because I'm able to converse with my grandparents who are by themselves back in India. So for that reason, he might stop right there. But the child will still learn the language. So to answer your question, just do what your parents did, and talk. Exposing the children to the language as much is what's going to make them learn the language.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Subhadra. This has been a wonderful conversation. We've gone through a lot of Tamil school and all of that. And I know this has been a very special episode for me and Keerthi as well to have you on here.
Thank you.
We've known you for so long, and we finally
We
get to ask
grew
all
up
the
with your
questions.
kids too. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm telling you,
But
I have like four groups, Sneha, on my
Yes.
WhatsApp, and these are international groups, and they are all
Wow.
geared towards teaching Tamil. So there is
I love
somebody
that.
posting something telling there is the school in Bangalore which is offering online classes for kids of all ages, and there is this way of learning Tirukkural, only Tirukkural classes. You want to sign up, you can do adults and kids. So what I'm telling, the resource material now that is available, especially coming from India, thanks to the technology development and everything, it's amazing. And we should all be thankful to Sakti uncle for our Tamil school because he came
Yes.
from New York, and they had a Tamil school at that time in New York. So when he came to Cincinnati, he's searching for a Tamil school because he wanted to uh, enroll, Karthik and Sri Kumaran. And then he finds out there is no Tamil school. So then he
Right.
approached Tamil Sangam and then told them, why don't we start a Tamil school? And that's how the foundation was laid. So
And it's amazing. It's amazing that it's grown so much, and it's amazing that me and Keerthi had the privilege of being a part of it for so long,
Mhm.
and then again seeing like our younger siblings and family friends, the younger ones in our family friend group go through it, and it's very exciting to see it grow
yeah,
and prosper.
yeah,
And I'm
it's
very
amazing.
happy.
You girls, I don't know whether you have acknowledged yourselves. Keerthi, Sneha, Kavya, both Kavyas, and a lot of other kids too in our Tamil community who have volunteered so much for not just the language but also to develop our culture. In the events, you come and helped us out in the events, in setting up, in conducting, and serving food. I know a lot of boys were involved in serving food when
Yeah.
during the events, which is very very important because serving is a very major, it plays a major role in our Tamilian hospitality. And for children to learn that, how to serve, how to be dignified while serving, that is very important. And a lot of children were interested in doing that. And then now we have incorporated the cultural experience of eating out of a banana leaf, which wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
available to us 5 years back. See,
Right.
that's a
Yeah.
new one. So the children from the last 5 years now will say, hey, that's very, very normal eating in a banana leaf. So even during the rest of the year, if the mom is taking a banana leaf from the garden and then coming and serving, they're not going to question why I should eat out of this leaf because he's been exposed in a big community way to eating out on a leaf. And that's become part of him now, growing up. So,
No, and
the
I love that, and
volunteer
I and
program
I'm
and all that, that stemmed out of your interest. In the schools you
right.
volunteered, in the events you volunteered, all our setting up, everything you volunteered. Thanks to you all.
I'm glad to be a part of it, and thank you so much for coming on to our conversation. We're gonna end. We've had an amazing conversation, and to our listeners, if you please, share, subscribe, like, share the episode, and see you guys in the next one. So
Thank you
bye.
so much, Keerthi, and thank you, Sneha, for having me on this podcast. It was very
Yeah,
interesting. In fact, it made me think. So thank you so much.
good. I'm glad.
We're
I'm glad.
glad.
Always the goal. All right. Bye.
Bye bye.
So before you kind of leave us today, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Ravi Ray Audio. You might have heard that our intro and outro music is a little bit different this season and is definitely upgraded to a next level. That's all thanks to Ravi Ray, who was our last guest in season 2, and he agreed to help us out with our music for season 3. So thank you so much, Ravi Ray, for all your help. And if you guys want to get in contact with him to collaborate with any projects or work with Ravi Ray Audio, we are linking his information to the episode description so you can reach out to him or see all the other projects he's done. And thanks again, Ravi, and we'll see you guys all in the next one.